Ladies and gentlemen, it is time. It is time for the one, the only Free Roam podcast. Hi, everybody. How you doing? Long time no see, everybody. Wow. Love that.
New stream, say me.
Yeah, new stream, say me. For those of you listening on all podcast platforms, I was live for like 2.5 hours right before the podcast, so we just rolled over to a new event with Joe Raptor, and we're chilling here now. And for everybody in chat joining us live already, like a couple hundred people chilling with us.
That's insane.
Just so you know, if you don't know already, anywhere you listen to podcasts, we are on it. So if you want to listen to the show on the go, you can do that. So check that out. How are you doing, Mr. Joe Raptor? You had a nice little holiday last week, didn't you?
Yeah. I was went to Italy. Beautiful there. Pisa, you might know the Pisa Tower, of course. That's pretty crazy to see in real life.
I hear it leans.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, and everyone like takes pictures, like trying to sort of like push it back and stuff. It's like the whole thing. But I went there for only one day because the tower is the only thing you can actually do there. So after that, I went to some other like towns nearby. Beautiful, chilled out in the jacuzzi on like a rooftop bar, and we went in some towns. Like beautiful weather. It was like 30 degrees, which like fine. It's not too hot. And now I'm back, and I'm actually tomorrow leaving for a festival in the Netherlands. So it's like my schedule's kind of crazy. Next week, Gamescom. The week after that, some other things. And then it's Starfield and all the like we're crazy time in August. Usually it's kind of quiet, but
July is always dead, and then August starts to pick up a little bit. There's a couple things here and there, and then September, October, November are just a mad rush of craziness. So it's gonna be a good time.
I want to thank RS NOS. I think you can call it like that. RS NOS liking the mustache, sure. I actually went to an Italian barber.
Ooh.
I was like, let's get rid of that beard. And they were like, okay, let's not fully get rid of it. I'm not gonna do that. So I kept a bit of it.
Did they do like a straight razor?
Yeah. It was like the whole the whole thing. But it has been like it was Sunday, and I'm already growing the beard back. So
look at you.
It's like for the first time I have to like kind of maintain that, which is
to do some trimming.
New to me. Yeah, for sure. But we can manage. I'm excited to talk about games with you because last week you, of course, did the show on your own. You had some Far Cry stuff going on, I saw.
Yeah, we had a pretty good time. It was nice and chill. Not a whole lot to talk about. Like Far Cry 7 news.
It was the best time.
They're making it. Like no surprise there.
We have big plans for Far Cry. No shit. That's the only big thing Ubisoft has next to Assassin's Creed and Tom Clancy. So
plus with all of these stories, it's like we just went through this morning. I believe it was this morning. They did a developer Q&A on Discord for Starfield. I didn't know about it until this morning, but basically Emil Pagliarulo, who's like the lead writer, he came up with all the chants for Skyrim and everything. So he's responsible for a lot of the stuff from BGS games. And then another guy named Will that I didn't recognize. But they went and they answered questions about the game. And it always surprised me that they'll like describe something like, and we think these quests are the best we've ever made. And everybody's like, did you hear that? They just said the quests are going to be better than any other game. I'm like, yeah. Like, can you imagine the response if they said, we think these are just about on par. They might be a little worse than other games we've done. Like, of course they're not
Skyrim we made like more than 10 years ago.
Like, we are just really ashamed. They're always like, we're really proud of the world we've made. Just flip it. Can you imagine them being like, we're really ashamed of what we've put together here. Like,
okay, so but you're still on the skeptical train then, or the spaceship, I should say, for Starfield.
I appreciate the spaceship reference. My whole stance is to not be convinced of something until there's adequate evidence to accept that claim. And in the case of Starfield, I think there is a good amount of stuff that should intrigue you, should excite you as a gamer. But there's also a lot of other stuff that weighs it down on the other side of the scale, like their troubles with performance optimization in years past. Of course, Fallout 76 being that they basically scammed everybody last time. And so I think it's fair to hold their feet to the fire and not just blindly
sure.
believe everything they say. But a lot of things they're describing about the game seem really intriguing. It seems that they're leaning a lot more into systems that were in Skyrim that were cut for Fallout 4. Like in that Q&A, they described how they're bringing in, or they're bringing back rather, the whole jailing system. So if you commit a crime on a planet with a big city, then you can be arrested and either pay your fine or bounty, or you'll be taken to jail. I think little systems like that are super cool to see. You can install specific modules in your ship for smuggling stuff that are going to be harder for inspectors to find. So things like that get me much more intrigued, much more excited. But with I don't think anybody was doubting that Starfield wouldn't have a lot of really cool little stuff. Our question is how it all ties together. So,
and if it's not like because the biggest comparison you can make is Cyberpunk, because we heard these things about Cyberpunk as well. Now it's hard to say, because I think if you asked me 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we're now like 3 weeks, right? Or 2 weeks, actually, time flies. Before the launch of like the early access of Starfield, if you asked me 2 weeks before Cyberpunk, like, is this gonna be like a shit show? I would have said no. But so I totally get where you're coming from. But for one reason though, I do feel like with them going gold, with their maybe even like sending out review codes this week already to outlets, which like a good thing as well. I hope they like do it for Xbox and PC this time. With Starfield with Cyberpunk, it was of course very controlled, and then the console version came out, and I just don't think they can like do that again. There's a lot riding on this game, way more I would argue than on Cyberpunk. Like you said, Fallout 76, Fallout 4 was still fine, but I don't think it's like the best Fallout they put out. So they really have to, on one end, Bethesda Game Studios have to show we can still make like a very cool RPG. Xbox has to show, hey, we bought Bethesda and this is why. And Game Pass, like, what happens? I'm so interested in. What will the number be? Let's make a prediction. What do you think in 1 week time? How many people? Because that's what they're gonna use. Have played Starfield. Like, they're not gonna say sales. Have played it, because a lot of people will play it through Game Pass. What do you think the number will be?
I mean, I think total number of people that probably boot it up and play it. Surely they're gonna count like all possible
everything
avenues, whether it's Steam or through Game Pass and all that. I mean, how many, well, first of all, before I say it, how many current active memberships do they do, or do they have?
It's like 30 20 million.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's like quite a lot, yeah, because PC of course counts as well.
And I have to,
but I think that,
I have to imagine that let's see, in 2022 they claimed that over 25 million. So by now maybe it's more, maybe it's a little less, who knows. But if we just go with the 25 million number, I have to imagine that if somebody is paying like 10-15 bucks a month for Game Pass, that they're going to try Starfield and boot it up. Like, do you really think that they get like 10 million people in the first week to boot up the game?
I think more.
You think more?
Because I think the game will. I think this will be very interesting to see, because on Steam it's like the highest seller. Like it was like last week in the Steam charts. Of course, Baldur's Gate 3 number 1. It was number 3. Starfield, the pre-order. Like, of course we talked about it before, how you just don't like the Xbox launcher on your computer. Yeah. So a lot of people will just buy this game, and they know, like a lot of fans of these Bethesda games know, I will be playing this game for years thanks to mods, DLC they will put out, of course. So let's just get it, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. So I actually think a lot of people will just straight up buy it. Remember how big Fallout 4 was? If I remember off the top of my head, I think Fallout 4 made like $500 million in like a few days. Let me quickly. So I still think the game will, or 750 million in the first 24 hours. $750 million in the first 24 hours.
Yeah.
Bigger than the Call of Duty that launched that same year. Like, this game is going to be massive, and especially if it's good. Because if it's good, I think it can be the new Elden Ring sort of moment, but the difference is that people can try it way faster. The only thing that will hold it back is that it's not on PlayStation.
I agree that will hold it back, but like, I'm even more open with it. I don't even think it has to be like particularly good. It just has to be not bad. So even if it's okay, I think it still is going to be an overwhelming success, because being on Game Pass, there's no $70 like speed bump. There's no gate where you have to pay that $70, put up the money to then try it and experience it yourself. So I still think like pretty much everybody's going to be playing this, because all you need is a Game Pass subscription. And
but what you see with Baldur's Gate 3, they had the second highest like concurrent peak in the second weekend. Usually you see the game comes out, the highest peak. Yeah, because the game was really good, it got like even higher. So that's why I think, sure, a lot of people will play it, but if it's really that 90 Metacritic, skyrocket.
I think especially
a lot of metaphors like that.
Yeah, just right to the moon.
Yeah,
I'm really interested as well in how this performs long term, being on Game Pass. I think I totally agree. Higher review scores definitely help longevity, or help it in the long term, because word of mouth with Baldur's Gate has been the key. It's such a niche game that I think just this top-down isometric, really hardcore RPG got good reviews. It's not going to make any headlines, but the fact that everybody's talking about it is what makes people that wouldn't normally play it decide to play it.
And I think it's the perfect release timing as well. I think by that time, people have already like either like are done with Baldur's Gate or are just chucking along, like they're ready for something else. And there's not much else coming out around that time, apart from Baldur's Gate 3 on PlayStation, but that's like a separate audience. And then a few weeks later, like 2 weeks later, you have Mortal Kombat, which is, I would argue, also for a different audience, but like it's still 2 weeks after that. So I really think they can like, this is like the moment where Xbox finally has to like shine. If this is not it, that would also be an interesting conversation, but I hope that they nail it. And from everything we've seen, seems like it. The 30 FPS is the only like kind of red flag or like thing that one like so far.
We'll see. I mean, I think a lot is riding on it for sure. I want to know, what is your like
Armored Core people are saying that's right. That's also coming out.
Oh yeah.
Liza
P will be a good one. That's one I'm excited for. I'm still
2
shocked.
weeks after though.
Armored Core though, like I'm seeing all sorts of tweets and crap about Starfield, which obviously is a big game. They haven't released something in a handful of years, like 5 years. So it's been a minute, and so it makes sense that there's a lot of hype surrounding Starfield. But Armored Core, maybe it's just the circles I'm moving in. I don't see hardly anybody talking about it. It's really strange to me. But
the videos are doing well though, like people previewing the game. There were some previews, people seem interested, but I do think on the Xbox side, if you like wait a week, you can play Starfield on your Game Pass sub. So I think people are gonna wait with Armored Core.
Yeah, I think so too. I do have to ask you though, I polled the audience about this on stream the other day. I've got to ask, what do you think? And you know what, I want everybody in chat hanging out with us live to do this as well. On a scale from 0 to 100, what do you think Starfield's final Metacritic is, like a week after launch? So once all the reviews have dropped, where do you think the Metacritic score lands for Starfield based on what you've seen? You think 88?
88. Yeah.
Okay. I'm actually like pretty much exactly where you are. I said like probably 88, 89, high B is where I would put it. Like high 80s.
Same.
I don't expect it to be amazing or tremendous. I expect it to be pretty good, have a lot of weird quirks to it. I also am anticipating a lot of PC optimization issues, as always with Bethesda, but I would love to be wrong about that. And frankly, if it ends up being in the 90s and being just like another big surprise this year, all the better. I'm super pumped.
We are like very optimistic looking at the chat though, because I see 75, 85, that's like on the high end, but some people are like 74, 75, 72. Damn.
Yeah.
Let's hope that's not the case though.
Yeah,
well,
I think
it will be higher than Redfall. That we can at least say that for sure.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, it better be.
And also someone asked in the chat about thanks everyone for sharing your number. That's awesome. Luke asked Joe Raptor about his love for Dom. Dom is asking that your Raptor's love for Forspoken, because we both like finished Atlas Fallen. I would put up a video last week about it.
Yep.
And actually before the previous shows, and not last week but the week before, we were actually kind of discussing it because we were embargoed. We could not talk about it on air, but still, we both, I think, were playing Atlas Fallen. I was personally saying to you, I prefer Forspoken to this. And you were like kind of on the other end. Like, where do you fall right now? I do know you don't like Forspoken.
I think Atlas Fallen, and yeah, this is something we were going to talk about last week, but because Joe Raptor was on holiday, we weren't able to. But yeah, Atlas Fallen, I reviewed it. I thought it was like your classic AA 7 out of 10. It's fine. You can have a decent weekend playing it. And if you're bored, and especially if you get it on sale at like $25-$30, I think support a small studio. Go for it.
For sure.
I just think the best way to describe Atlas Fallen is it's basically a AA version of Forspoken without the insufferable, cringy protagonist that they insist on you liking. Instead, it's just kind of a husk of a person that doesn't have any personality, but I can't stand any of the writing really at all in Forspoken so much that I would frankly just prefer no protagonist effectively instead. That's my stance.
Okay, no, personally, I like it even if I still have a feeling. Like I still, even if I don't like everything that's going on, like I don't have to maybe like the person I'm playing, if that makes sense. I'm kind of like from the outside looking in, I'm experiencing their story. And I thought, I think Frey was her name, right? Okay, that's kind of bad
exactly.
that I don't even remember the name.
Checkmate.
But like she at least had a personality. Even if I did not maybe like that always, she had something going for her. I was like interested in what she was gonna say next because I am not hanging out with persons like that. But sure, like what do they what do they have like in store for her? And yeah, that just made me care more for the overall story. I do think actually if you mold the two games together, you would actually have a pretty cool combination, because I think Atlas Fallen did the open world stuff pretty well. There were pretty cool things you could find. And I know in your video you were like, okay, what am I gonna do? And I find new fingernails, or I find like a weird like
a gibble
I don't
smack.
even know. Yeah, like a weird item that you will never like really use. While in Atlas Fallen you could like actually find really cool cosmetics, like a cool new helmet or actual new abilities. So I thought they did that really well. But the story was like there were it was like non-existent. I did like the combat. I thought that was fine, but I liked getting the powers in Forspoken more. Like Forspoken at least felt, I think it's also interesting because you really saw Forspoken had like a huge budget versus Atlas Fallen. And I still like that. Okay, so they really mismanaged this game, but you still see that they at least were trying with like, I think the boss fights in Forspoken were pretty awesome against the Tatas, the Tantas. Either way, I thought it was an interesting conversation, but yeah, I think after like a few months I will like forget Atlas Fallen, while I will still remember Forspoken. I have just feelings about it, while Atlas Fallen was like, all right.
Yeah, I think that's one of the difficulties though with AA games, is that a lot of AA games fall into that category of being played and then kind of forgotten and moved on from, whereas AAA stuff, good and bad, sticks in our memory because they have huge marketing budgets. All the eyes are on them before they come out. And then when the reviews drop, if they're great, people will remember it for being really good. And if it's a disaster, people will remember it for being a disaster.
Sadly.
So I think
but I feel with Atlas Fallen is like people will just not remember it. It's like there's like nothing, like I heard no one talk about it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it really failed to distinguish itself in a way. Like there's the old like marketing gimmick or marketing saying where you go like, does it pass the squint test? And then the other thing is the tip of the tongue test. And this was something one of my marketing professors described to me, and he was putting it in context of like differentiating your company, but it also applies to just a game. Because if you're talking about a game like Forspoken, how do you describe it to somebody as quickly and efficiently as possible, like in as few words as possible, where somebody that doesn't know what game you're talking about without saying the name of it would know what you're referring to? How I would do it is I'm probably like, that PlayStation flop with the annoying protagonist. And I would guess most people in chat would know what I'm referring to. With Atlas Fallen, it's like, it's that game where you have a gauntlet and you can like ski in the sand. And, like it doesn't flow very well, and it's not easy to describe. So at the very least, Forspoken is identifiable. I would say it's probably for the wrong reasons, but there are people that, you know, swear by Forspoken, and who knows, maybe in 10 years we're all going to look back at Forspoken and be like, oh, that was actually a hidden gem. I don't know. But we'll see.
It was at least playing that. It was likely at least like, I want them to have another crack at this in some way. Like I thought they at least were trying something cool with the world. There were some pretty interesting ideas there. And yeah, with Atlas Fallen, like they came off the Surge, which I think was, I never really like properly played it. I played like for a few hours, but I think that those were actually better regarded. So, yeah. It's interesting, but I agree with you. I would say it's Alice in Wonderland, but you kill some Tantas.
Kill some Tantas.
And then people are like, what the Tanta?
I think a lot of these games, though, also it's all about marketing and how they frame it. I get, like, looking back on Forspoken, I can definitely see the Alice in Wonderland inspirations and things. But I think instead of having Alice, who's this like really innocent character that is very confused by where she's at and wants to not necessarily help anybody there. It takes her a long time to get there. But she's very innocent. And in that sense, she's likable because she's discovering all of this in a very reserved way. Yeah. Whereas Faye or Buffet, whatever her name is, she is just like so cocky and arrogant from the start that like, I haven't met a single person, even among Forspoken stans, that are like, no, I actually really liked her. Everybody's like, no, if this was somebody in my social circle, I wouldn't hang out with them. They're super annoying. And I don't know what that is. And then we'll get into the main topics. Everybody, I'm sorry for rambling.
Yeah.
But
my bad as well.
No, you're fine. I don't know what it is about games recently. And it's also in films. Maybe it's all because of Marvel, honestly. It might be all Marvel and Taika Waititi, where they think that it's like likable to have a character that doesn't take anything seriously. Whether you look at Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man or you look at like Forspoken in the video game space, there's always these characters that are like, oh, this very serious thing is happening. Well, I'm just going to kind of joke about it. And I'm going to be really witty and charming at the same time. Meanwhile, people are like dying, but they're like, oh, but I'm going to joke about it. And it creates this really weird, conflicting, dissonant tone. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I thought it was just something different. That was kind of my takeaway. But yeah, there are like many good games. So I still think if you like see the game for like $10, give it a shot.
Yeah. You might be one of those people that just likes it. Yeah. Don't take it too seriously.
Rush to the Tantas. I see everyone laughing about it. Tatas, Tantas. I actually thought the plot, like the sort of twist at the end, was pretty good. But okay, let's move on. I hope some people are like, oh, maybe I should like give it a shot.
Yeah. Let's go to our titular topic, our very first one. This is something a lot of people have been wondering about.
Oh, okay.
And that is, I think, something that surprised both of us. I wasn't expecting this. I don't think anybody was, frankly. It makes sense now in hindsight, but what we're referring to is the announcement that Assassin's Creed Mirage has gone gold. That's great. Kind of has to do that before it launches. But also, it's coming out a week early. They just straight up...
What?
Yeah. They yeeted that launch date, scooted it forward, and now it's releasing a week earlier on October 5th. And when I said this makes sense now that we're looking at it, I think it makes sense because like they wanted more time away from Spider-Man, which is 100%. Very fair. So I think it's a good move for business. I think it's got plenty of time, 2 full weeks for a shorter game to sit on the sales charts and for people to try it. I I think that's a no-brainer. And it also communicates a sense of confidence on their part that they're like, yeah, this is so polished, we're going to move it up. We're not delaying it. We're going to move it up. That, I think,
To be
altogether.
a devil's advocate, though, Assassin's Creed Valhalla moved up a week as well.
Yeah.
And that was like a bug fest. So
And
we
dude-
should not like celebrate just yet.
Exactly.
Although the reason for Valhalla was different because they were like, okay, let's launch with the Xbox because they had the Xbox deal. But yeah, I have a feeling this is probably going to be a bit different. I hope.
Yeah,
I
as
think
long as they
Valhalla's
don't
also-
have like, you remember with Valhalla they had that glitch. For one, the screen tearing was horrible for so long, but secondly, they had that glitch for like months where you would just load in and Ivor was super drunk every time
No, that
you
was
loaded in.
actually after a festival. That was after the first festival. So that was like it happened with the Yule festival, like the first one they did, and that happened over like Christmas. So then all the developers were out, and then the first update was like end of January or something.
So they're like,
And the fun thing was, it came back often. Like it somehow sneaked back into the game, and I remember this, and I had like in my videos tricks on how to get rid of the drunk Eivor. It was a whole thing.
What a gem. It's one of those things where you're like, is this a bug or a feature? Like, did they mean to do? Because maybe like being part of the festival, it's like an inside joke that every time you load back in, it's like I've always been just plastered while you've been away not playing the game. But no, it was a bug that everybody was out of the office and wouldn't fix. But oh yeah, and that bug where Ivor would keep wearing the skull mask. I remember there were a couple where like clothing.
Yeah, Gloucestershire. Yeah. There were many things, but those were not even like the biggest ones. Like I could not even finish my main story arc until that end of January patch. So like more than 2 months after launch, because if I would go to the Alliance table, and like select the thing that I had to go to, I would be stuck at the table and could not move. And in that sort of cutscene, you cannot like quick save or do whatever. So I could just not finish the game until that point. There were many things like I even remember like PowerPix, who does like trophy guides. They said like we can't finish this guide because this game is so broken. It's so hard. It's like very easy to forget because like 3 years ago. But Valhalla was really, really broken at launch. So I hope it's different this time.
Yeah,
I think it is. They delayed this a couple of times. Like it was planned for February. So
that's where I'm at. I'm like, I like they've delayed it so much, and it seems as though they're pretty confident with it. But we'll see. As far as I know, and you guys know, if like I had played it at this point, I just wouldn't talk about this. But as far as I know, nobody has gotten their hands on it from the press. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. But I haven't tried it. I haven't touched it. I think Valhalla, they did play tests like 6 months beforehand. July
was like, because it was like, of course, COVID. So they did like the first Ubisoft Forward, and we could then play it.
Yeah. So, but I mean, then again, that was also a much bigger game from a much bigger group of developers. So it's just different. So who knows? Fingers
I think it will be fine though. But it makes sense business wise. Like it's now a great spot. Like there's nothing else happening. I think Forza is like the biggest game that is coming out like close after that. It was like October 10th, and that's of course a completely different type of game. Yeah. And then you have like Alan Wake on October, or like Lords of the Fallen on October 13th. So that's like 1 week after, which also kind of a different game. And then you have Spider-Man and Alan Wake and stuff.
Yeah.
So
it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, they also want to make that microtransaction money.
Oh, baby.
Because of course Ubisoft could not do it to have any item packs at the launch. So we of course know Mirage will not have any DLC or post-launch plan, but of course it's still an Assassin's Creed game, so they will have, even though it's like a return to the roots thing, they still want to have the Fire Demon mythical pack. And if you're like a listener, it's like it's like a demon outfit with like a fire sword and it's a rhino mount or something. I think the mount looks pretty cool, but I think it will be very weird to rock this in Mirage when you're like this stealth assassin demon hunt. I don't know what's going on here, but hey, they're gonna have item packs at launch. I first thought they would only do the deluxe edition pack for Prince of Persia, because we of course know there's a deluxe edition where you get those items, and they usually have like an upgrade for if you bought the regular edition and want to upgrade. But no, there will be item packs for the game as well. What's your take on that?
I mean, I don't think this surprises anybody. It's unfortunate. Like, I just would prefer not to have this. Even Assassin's Creed Valhalla, even that game had the paid skins and outfits and stuff. And the reason I had a problem with those was not because they were cosmetic, but because they actually did at times affect gameplay. They had like, you could fully upgrade them, whereas other gear was capped at certain points, so you'd have to swap it out. Like, it just, and there was one, it was like a black outfit. Maybe Joe Raptor remembers what it's called, but it was like a berserker outfit, maybe, had skulls on it, and it had like poison effect damage that could be output.
Yeah. I remember that one.
Yeah, and like that's something where if you pay
Draugr set.
The Draugr set. Yes. Yeah. That one, like if you use that, the game is significantly easier, especially in the early hours. And
to be fair though, Valhalla was really easy. Like I remember a lot of people saying I just played the game with the Raven Clan armor. Like what we figured out a few months after launch, that gear didn't even matter.
Yeah.
It's like, of course, the poison was pretty OP, but then your whole screen would be like green with the poison, so wasn't even fun. But yeah, you're right. It still in a single player game, it's like kind of like activating a cheat code. You only have to pay for it, I guess.
Yeah.
But my oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna agree and be like, yeah, I think in general AC Valhalla is too easy. Even when I did that revisit video, we went back and I tried setting the enemy scaling where it sets enemies like 60 levels above you or something like that, and it still was like a walk in the park. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
what I did was I tried to challenge myself because I was like figuring this out as well. Like, wow, this game is super easy. So I was like as like a level like 80 Eivor, of course, like the max level was 360, I think, at launch, something like that. I just went to like the Winchester area, which was like the most high level area. Everyone was like a skill level, and I could still beat them.
Yeah.
But that was because they did not want in Valhalla the sort of bullet spongy sort of enemies that we saw in Odyssey. That was, of course, one of the critiques. So they tried to dial it back, but
they went the whole complete opposite direction.
Yeah. So, and you could, of course, also assassinate everyone in one hit. So your whole gear wasn't really interesting. But that's, of course, like the whole Valhalla Jack of all trades, master of none story. What do you think of this theory, though? Because I did hear, like, I think maybe French YouTuber Jonathan said it, or I heard it somewhere else, but that it was like Ubisoft is kind of like maybe not scared with this game, but they, of course, like left the old school Assassin's Creed experiences behind because Syndicate did not. It was the only game during the PS4 generation that did not sell 10 million. So they, of course, moved to Origins, found big success also because the item packs in an RPG make way more sense, and they could very easily add extra content. There was way more content, so people were spending more time. And if people spend more time, that's what the companies like figured out, they will likely spend more money on extra content as well. So with Mirage, they're kind of like, okay, so we're already releasing this at a lower price. We want to get more out of it. That's likely also where the item packs obviously come in. I mean, even in like the older games before the RPG games, we still saw a lot of microtransactions, but now they're applying the RPG stuff. But maybe if they see that these item packs work in a Mirage game as well, they might be like, okay, maybe it's not weird to invest more in these old school games, because next to the price that we asked for the full game, we can also make that extra money. So because the item packs are like the highest profit. It's like the cost to make them versus what they get is huge. So that's why they're kind of pushing the RPG games. But maybe because if they see that these item packs sell well in Mirage as well, it might be like, okay, the game did pretty well. We can actually extract more out of people. Like, I'm just saying, I don't want them to like completely change the progression or add an XP boost in Mirage. That doesn't make sense. But like these item packs maybe in their mind do. Do you kind of try see what I'm kind of saying here?
I think just in general, if people want more games like Mirage, they need to vote with their wallets and buy it at launch at full price. That's, love it or hate it, that's how you make a company aware that you like X, is by buying it at full price when it launches. So I think that's the easiest way. And I'm not gonna, for one, we don't even know specifically what these cosmetic packs or outfit packs and things even are. We've seen a data mine picture, we've seen leaks and stuff, but we haven't seen the actual items listed with effects on gameplay. So like, I'm not going to recommend, and buy all the microtransactions if you want more.
No, I'm not saying that either.
Yeah, but I do think they are going to try to make Mirage as profitable as possible with these being placed in there. And frankly, if they do sell well, I think Ubisoft executives are much more likely to greenlight another one, because they're like, oh, well, I mean, honestly, if you guys are gonna like buy up these cosmetic packs and we get a lot of goodwill with our gamers and our fans, that's a win-win. Let's do that. So we'll see. I don't know how well something like the Fire Demon pack sells in a 20-hour game that most people are gonna finish in a weekend or two. I just don't know how many people are gonna invest in a cosmetic outfit like that, but I guess we'll
it
see.
looks like a combat outfit. While we learned Basim is like a fragile character, he's gonna die in like a few hits, and there are even enemies. Like in one of the behind the scenes videos, there's like one pop up saying these guys are armored enemies. They don't take any damage from melee hits and from ranged weapons, so you have to attack them from behind. So basically, sneak up to them, assassinate them. How is that gonna work with the Fire Demon pack? You're like slamming them and it doesn't. So
yeah.
I'm already like really curious, or maybe this has like a cheat where it's like, but this weapon can like slice through armor. I would not be surprised, because we do know the sword and the dagger, that's like the only weapons that Basim can use. They will have perks just like the armor sets. And sure, they can go the cosmetic route, but for Valhalla, Odyssey, Origins did have only cosmetic outfits, but Odyssey and Valhalla did not.
Yeah.
So
dude,
it will be interesting.
That would be so conflicting too, because it's like, say they do drop this and it's, I don't know, let's just say $15-20, and it's like
it's gonna cost us.
So let's say it's $20, and if you buy it now, it gives you like a Valhalla sword, and you can just chop people down and play it like Valhalla and not bother with the stealth at all. Like, clearly it's not just cosmetic, it's actually changing the game from a stealth game to an action fighting game. But it's also like, if you don't want to deal with it, just don't buy it, and you'll just play the game as a stealth game. The only problem would be is if they balanced it, assuming, or like heavily pushing you into buying the melee thing. Either way, that would be insane. Like, can you imagine if that's I don't know what else this is.
We already know, like, that's important to know. There won't be, I don't think there's like an in-game store in Mirage, although it's still Ubisoft. So like, I also did not expect these item packs, but we do know that, like, if you look at the inventory screen, your gear menu, you in the RPG games on the top right corner had like go to store, right? You had like the D-pad option. And in Mirage, there's not there. That's like a quick save button. So I really think you boot up Mirage, you see the same menu that we had in Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla. So with the tiles that says like, hey, watch the showcase, or like, hey, go to Ubisoft Connect for extra items, or thanks for joining Mirage in the weekend, like those messages. It will have an advertisement for this demon pack. Then you jump into the game and you will not see it at all. I think that's gonna happen. And then I'm like, okay. But the moment it's like, hey, you just killed a new order target, but did you know that with the Fire Demon pack, you can just walk up to them and breathe fire and then they die? That's not gonna fly over.
Or
well.
the Iron Man pack, where you can come.
Oh,
and
it's back! It's back,
baby.
We now got the license, baby. So we're back.
I don't know. I mean, I personally, and I don't have stats to back this up. This is a blind assertion that nobody should believe. That being said, I am convinced. No, I blindly think that most people who want to go and buy cosmetics are going to seek them out. I can't imagine that many people are just like sitting down to
Yeah.
play a game like Mirage and are like, well, I wasn't going to buy a skin, but I saw this advertisement on the main menu and they convinced me. I think most people that are just playing a single player game are in it to play it. And then those who are like, no, I want to look badass while doing this, will do it. I was talking to somebody at a party just like last week, and they said that they were somebody that every game they play, they like to get all sorts of different cosmetics. They are the players that have like 50 skins in Call of Duty, 100 in Fortnite. Like that's one of their things. It's like collecting minifigures for them. And I know that sounds weird to us because we're not like that, but there are people like that where they're going to seek out the skins regardless of where they are, if they're tucked in a menu or if they're accessible in the inventory screen or whatever. So I don't think they even need to be that aggressive with it. And I don't think it'll affect their bottom line that much. So hopefully they do what you're saying and they just offer it. And then those who want it will seek it out. And then everybody else just doesn't have to be bothered by it.
Probably. Yeah, that's what I think will happen. And worth noting as well, because that's what I sometimes had with Valhalla, where it was like all those armor sets in Valhalla were not that exciting, but then you saw the really cool outfits in the shop, and it was like, hey, but it would have been cool if we could just earn that in the game. Like the Fire Demon pack was never going to be an outfit you could like earn in the game. So I think that's also like worth pointing out, that it's not like an item that they like that was like a reward for doing something. Now they're selling it instead.
Yeah.
It feels like a really dedicated thing. Hey, I'm gonna be like figuring it out. I'm curious about that. So we will see. But good. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think you raised a good point with it being not
cut
I guess it's not cut out. This clearly was made completely separately. Like I think it was Origins had that freaking Final Fantasy crossover, and like they had like a special skin and sword or something.
It was free. That was all free.
It was free. Yeah, it was like
yeah.
I don't know, but like that was something where I was like, yeah, if you're like really immersed in the world of ancient Egypt, using any of this stuff or seeing any of this is probably going to pull you out. But that's why you just don't bother with it if you're not interested.
I think like it's a good thing to like move on to the Assassin's Creed Jade if you're ready for it, because that's a whole new level in terms of monetization. I think it's like a cool or interesting segue, because for one, and I'm not sure if you knew or saw it as well. Have you played it? Did you get access after all? Like I was not allowed or whatever. I don't know.
I did not get access to it. I was waiting and waiting and waiting.
Same.
And I never got greenlit to actually try it.
Yeah, same. I was like reached out. We talked about it in the previous episode. I was like, okay.
It was weird.
But yeah, but my contact was also on a holiday, so maybe if they were around, it would have been easier. Still watched a lot of gameplay. I think X the Animus, of course, big in the Assassin's Creed community. They did like a really great stream, like showcasing every menu. I was like writing everything down and stuff. It was like very interesting. But yeah, for people who don't know, that's of course the mobile game that is coming, iOS, Android. Fingers crossed that it's also coming to PC. But I think like because Tencent or like Level Infinite is making it and publishing it as well. And I would not be surprised if in their agreement is like, you can own the mobile space with Assassin's Creed, but you cannot put this on console and PC. And I hope I'm wrong about it, because if you watch gameplay, you know it looks like the sequel to Assassin's Creed Odyssey, basically, but on your phone.
Yeah,
they do have like a lot of similar animations. Like you still don't have like a hidden blade. You have like this dagger that actually Cassandra gives to you in the tutorial. Like you play the tutorial.
She's everywhere.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty cool. So you take everyone out with like the dagger, or like with this sword instead of the hidden blade. And yeah, it's like pretty. I'm like super impressed by it because it brings back multiplayer. I'm not sure if you saw that.
Yeah.
So there are these missions that you can do alone or with up to 4 people. There are mythical creatures that you can also do with other people. And you can also, I think X the Animus like just tried some things, and they were like able to kind of explore the world together a bit as well. So that's like pretty cool. It's just so weird that we haven't seen multiplayer in Assassin's Creed for a
I
freaking long time.
I agree. I think it was mostly that, like with Unity, after the terrible response there, Ubisoft executives basically looked at that and were like, okay, so everything Unity did, therefore, should be shed from the franchise.
Yeah.
We should get rid of all of it. And that's literally throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You're upset about the bathwater, you get rid of it, it's dirty, and you throw it out and the baby goes flying too. They got rid of all the good stuff, trying to get rid of the bad stuff. And I think the co-op still had a place in the franchise. Frankly, it plays pretty well, and I think it makes sense with the mission structure they had with Unity. And with everything else they did with Unity, heavy focus on parkour, the lighting system, like everything good about that game also got dumped. So I think it's interesting to see them bring it back. I guess we can touch a little bit on the monetization scheme for Jade. It's not surprising at all.
No, I think it's like worth talking about first what this game has to offer before we are talking about the sort of unlimited money you can spend on it, because it's kind of designed like that. But like next to the you make your own character. You have like this fully voiced main story. The cutscenes were not in the beta yet, but they just had like concept art with like a narrator talking over it. And it's like if this game launched like around Odyssey, it does look not as great as Odyssey. Obviously, it's like still a mobile game, but it looks pretty solid. It's like a big open world. There are a ton of side activities with like outposts where you have like one dedicated objective, like get this chest, kill these bandit champions. Like it's nothing really new, but it does a lot of it, and it's like completely free to play. And you also have the Matrix, which like a sort of arena mode where you fight waves of enemies, and then you like advance, so you're kind of forced to be smart about that. There's a bounty system where you can chase and kill specific targets. Side missions. There was like one murder mystery that you could like complete. There are mounts. They have transmog at launch, loadouts at launch. There's like so much stuff. And again, the multiplayer, I think it's like a huge deal, like to have that back in a game and in an RPG Assassin's Creed, which like Ghost of Tsushima Legends like really showed it would have been cool to have this in Assassin's Creed as well. And I think you make a great point. I totally think they just scrapped everything from Unity, while instead of like looking, okay, what did work? Let's bring that over. It's just kind of crazy that now Tencent is like the first time that we finally see a multiplayer back. But it works great, of course, with these RPG type of games. So yeah, I'm trying to say like this game is huge. I also said it in a video, or in a video that will be going up a little later, but I would not be surprised if like they already spent like $100 million on this game. It's like a AAA mobile game that if they put on console, I don't think people would be like, what the heck? There's not enough content or something. There's like a lot, but, and that's of course where you were like going for it. It is like a gacha game. I'm not sure what you kind of saw about the monetization already.
No, I think you're more familiar with it than I. Just for those of you out there that might not be familiar with the term gacha, I'm like losing my voice all of a sudden. That's weird. Gacha games are based. It's the standard like heavily monetized type of game that you would expect. It's based off of like a certain type of, I think, cabinet arcade style game in Japan is where it got started. But it's basically, I mean, all of the stuff, with loot boxes, with kind of rolling the dice to get a collection of items, all starts from those gacha games. And it's very common in mobile games, less common in like console and PC gaming nowadays after like the backlash, for example, that Battlefront 2 got back in 2017. But it's still very much on mobile. It's very common there, especially for live service games. And it's here in this case, too.
I would argue though that Genshin Impact really brought it back to the console space. Like that game launched in, what was it, like 2020 or something, on PC, PlayStation 4, then later got a PS5 version, and also on mobile. Like at the same time, you can like play it everywhere, and it's like really impressive to play that game on your phone. It like feels like a console experience. And I think this game kind of has the same thing going for it, but they really looked at Genshin Impact, because I played that actually quite a lot, and they just straight up copied all the systems. So
I thought Genshin Impact was Tencent, is it not?
No, it's Mioverse, or Hoyoverse.
Oh.
Yeah, so there's like a Chinese company that are like really big. Like they of course launched this year. They launched Honkai Star Rail, the turn-based version of Genshin Impact, and they're also making an action RPG DMC style version. Like they're looking at every genre. Let's just apply the learnings. Let's make some sexy anime babes, so people are going to gamble for them and put them in every game. That's kind of their tactic, and it's like they're making more money. I think I saw it like then, or they're making more profit than Sony. Like because there's insane profit. People are like gambling their asses off to get like a cool looking lady who also shoots some fireballs. That's it's kind of crazy. But what they're doing for Jade is, instead of like gambling for characters, you're chasing weapons. So all the legendary weapons that we saw in Odyssey, Valhalla, Origins, they're basically now in this gacha system. So if you want to get them, you'll have to roll. You can choose to go for either one roll or 10, and then you get 10 items. And if you do 10 at the same time, you always know, okay, there's going to be one better rarity item. So you have blue, purple, and legendary. The chance to get a legendary item, though, from those pools is 1.6%. 1.6%. But what they do is that if you roll 50 times, you get a guaranteed legendary item. That is from that banner is what it's called. So they, for example, say, okay, get this amazing, cool-looking spear. You have to, with every sort of gamble you do, with every roll you do, you have a 1.6% chance. But if you do 50 of these rolls, you get the weapon guaranteed. So that is like kind of the carrot at the end of the stick. And then the currency you use to get those weapons, it's like you get it from everything you do in the game. So you can totally get it for free. But how they usually do it is that you have these achievements at the start of the game where it's like kill 10 chickens, kill 10 boars, kill 10 soldiers, assassinate 10 people from up high. Like they will think of a lot of things. So at the start of the game, you get a lot of and you're like, whoa, this actually goes pretty fast, and I can like get a lot of weapons for free. But then when you reach the end game, it's like, damn, I'm not getting the items anymore. And then you still wanna, because they will release new legendary weapons every few weeks, and then you're like, damn, I want to get this amazing hammer. It looks really good. I'm gonna like spend money to hopefully get it through the system, and that's how they gotcha.
Yep,
that's how they get you.
Gotcha.
That's kind of
yeah. It's very. I mean, it's a master class in how to persuade people to spend money, because it's like, oh well, if you just want one roll, yeah, it's 1.6% chance. But I mean, really, you might roll 100 times and still not get anything, because it's 1.6% on every single roll. So you're not even then guaranteed to get anything. But if you were to just pay for 50 all at once, you're guaranteed. So you might as well kind of do it all at once. And this is how they get you. And for a lot of people, like I see people in chat are just like, who would do this? Like, I don't just it's amazing to me that anybody would spend this money on this. But there are people, and this is where like the ethical concern comes up, because there are people that are like actually addicted to gambling or have gambling predilections that make them very vulnerable to this type of thing, and they literally cannot help themselves. Like it's a problem. There's that streamer DSP who was caught. Not only does he like e-beg a lot on his streams, but also they found out that he has been spending tens of thousands of dollars on a mobile game called WWE Champions, which is a gacha game mixed with like Bejeweled or Candy Crush. So, and like that's at a point where if you're spending tens of thousands of dollars on stuff like that, you're probably pretty far down the rabbit hole. And there's people like that who just can't help themselves, and it's just bad. It's just really, really bad. But these games print ridiculous amounts of money.
Yeah,
because people
it's
do
like an
spend
endless.
it.
Yeah, and what they also do is that if you get the weapon once, it's like pretty good. Like what they did in Jade is that, for example, in Odyssey and Valhalla, the abilities you unlock are linked to your character, so you can always use them no matter the weapon. In this game, the abilities are linked to the weapon. So if you get like a cool longsword, you have two different abilities than maybe the longsword you get a few hours later into the game. So also with these legendary weapons, they have unique abilities that are likely exclusive to that weapon, which makes these weapons, more exciting to
All the
get
more
as well.
valuable. Yeah.
Yeah, and also if you like have level 1 of this weapon, it's great, it's pretty good. But if you get the weapon a second time, you can upgrade it, and then it's even better. Like that's of course another thing where the duplicates and where it can kind of keep going. Now, to be fair though, like I do think it's, of course, there are these ethical concerns and stuff. It's always like, are the games to blame, or is the person, do they have to restrain themselves, right? It's like, I think kind of the multiple ways of looking at it. And I do still think that if you, from what I've seen so far, if you just play the game a lot, you do get a lot of currency. And you just have to be like, okay, I'm gonna save up for this weapon that I know is coming in a few weeks, but I'm gonna skip the other weapons. So you kind of have to play like that, and just build up your arsenal like that. And they will drop a lot of story content for free. Like, you don't have probably to get these weapons, but that's of course probably why they did the multiplayer, so you can see someone with that cool weapon and be like, whoa, that's actually pretty cool, I might want to get it. But that's of course how every like sort of live service social game works. Like, why do you think the tower in Destiny exists? It's because other people can then see your freaking armor that you probably bought.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, they have this down to a science at this point.
For sure.
So they know what they're doing. This game's going to make ridiculous amounts of money. I also think tying it to weapons
I'm curious, though,
is a really interesting choice, because when you're talking about an exploration-based game and you're trying to find ways to encourage the player to look in every nook and cranny of a map, it makes a lot of sense to have a gear-heavy system, which is what, I understand people are frustrated by the degradation systems in like Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild, but those were very intentionally chosen because the weapon breaks and you have to seek out new weapons by continuing to explore. And in this case, with all of the stats tied up in weapons, I don't know if they'll also have weapons dropped in locations or when you complete assassination contracts or things like that. But I would imagine the more you explore, the more likely you are to get better weapons as you continue to explore, whether finding them or getting things that you can roll with.
There are like ways to upgrade the weapon, like runes are still there, so you can still use them. There are still armor sets, and it does seem like we've only seen like the gacha used for weapons so far. So it seems like the legendary armor set and stuff are something you can earn through playing, although there are also cosmetic only armors, so that just apply a look. I'm sure they will probably sell those as well, but that will probably not have a gameplay impact. It will be interesting to see. Like, I'm of two minds. Like, on one hand, they really went all in with this game. It doesn't feel like they held back in terms of the amount of content, etc., etc. They're really trying to make this a thing. So obviously they have to make their money back somehow. I just don't hope that you do hit this sort of grindy spot where you only can like succeed if you upgraded your spear by spending $1,000. That's where I'm what I'm worried about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's refreshing to see a mobile game that does not seem to be just a quick rushed out cash grab, which so many of these like little mobile adaptations turn into, where it's Candy Crush, but instead of that, occasionally each little thing is shaped like the Assassin's Creed logo. And then when you get the match, you hear a swoosh like a knife blade. Like, at least it's something really original.
That is really the old way, though. Like, that has not been, I think, the case for a long time. Like, we, of course, had Rainbow Six Mobile that is coming as well. Like, that they really seem to try to make that feel like the Rainbow Six experience on console. Obviously, it's kind of hard, but like, you do see a lot of content. Like, Call of Duty Mobile is huge, and it's basically Call of Duty.
Dude, I was
Warzone as well, and
we were at the airport, and we were like at a restaurant there waiting for our flight, and at the other table across from us, so like I'm sitting here, Nikki is sitting across from me, but behind her was this, like, he had to be 10 years old. He was a kid, and he had his like iPad mini, I think, in front of him. And he was doing like a crazy claw grip on the thing. And so like, my tablet here, like, so he's doing like this crazy claw grip, and it looked like he was strumming some spiritual lute all at the same time. And he was playing Call of Duty Mobile, and this kid had to have like a 15 KD. He was insane. I've never seen somebody play a mobile shooter game, for one, like that, and two, that well. I felt bad because I was just staring at this child, but it's because I was just baffled at how good he was at that game, doing the little claw hand thing. Like, I was blown away. It was crazy. So there are people that go hard for it. And yeah, I think Call of Duty Mobile, I was going to say before you mentioned it, I was going to say that, like, I think that really proved to a lot of these big companies that a more legitimate experience that is closer to what they can get on console or PC will perform on mobile.
Yeah, and we have here Targaryen like in the chat as well. Me when playing PUBG Mobile. Like PUBG Mobile, I think is more popular than the real game. Like I'm saying real game. That's like kind of my old way of thinking, but like than the PC game.
Yeah, at this point,
yeah. So like it makes sense that they're chasing it, and I think it's interesting that Ubisoft chose to go with Level Infinite for that. Why not make it yourself? But yeah, I mean, they got like a big offer. Like I think they gave Ubisoft a ton of money, and Ubisoft is getting royalties constantly from this game as well. So
yeah,
will be interesting. But at Gamescom, I'm gonna play it, so we'll be reporting back.
Yes,
and talk to some developers. Asking some questions because I do think it might launch like sooner than we think. Like the closed beta looked pretty far along already. So.
Yeah. We shall see. I mean, sliding into Gamescom just to continue chipping along and to get through these last little tidbits. What are you going to see at Gamescom? What are we going to see? What's happening there?
Yeah, well, obviously that's the biggest gaming show, like in terms of people going there, consumers, in Germany, Cologne, happening next week. They will kick off August 22nd with the opening night live show. Jeff Keighley, of course, taking the stage. Last year we had some pretty big things. Dead Island 2 was announced, re-revealed, and it's out, and it's surprisingly great. Still, man, it's like 2023 has been crazy, but I think in like an off year, it would totally have been in my top 5 for the year so far. We had Lords of the Fallen was revealed. So Everywhere, do you remember that game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all thought that was going to be like an NFT crazed thing because it came out during the same time. Yeah.
And so we had that. Of course, we got like big updates on Gotham Knights. Like they had the villain trailer, which kind of turned that narrative for that game a bit around. That's when they also moved the release date, I think, forward. Hogwarts Legacy got like a new trailer. So there's probably going to be some big stuff. We already know this week, so August 22nd, next week will be Alan Wake 2. We will get a new look at that. And I think the big one is Black Myth Wukong. Have you been like keeping an eye on that game?
Yeah, I've seen it floating around. I still am not totally sure what to think of it. It looks great, but it almost looks too good to be true. So I'm just
I get it, because also like from a Chinese developer, I think that's like not very known, but like like they are going to be there at the show. I think they said earlier this year it's gonna come out summer 2024. Maybe they'll put a date on it. And that's like you play Wukong, you're like this crazy ape. You have like this huge pole, like sort of staff that has like crazy abilities. Especially the bosses look insane.
Yeah,
it's kind of inspired by Journey to the West. And the graphics in particular, like I think it was like the first game that looked kind of next gen for people. Like I think it was even like shown before we got the PS5 and Xbox Series. So it's kind of cool to see that game again. Mirage will be get a new look as well. So we'll get a new trailer for Mirage. Curious what they will show. I think they will maybe focus on like the black box missions. Feels like we haven't heard a lot about that yet, which of course the sort of structure to get to the targets that we have to kill. Fort Solis will be there, which like remember that one time at Gamescom, I think it was 2 years ago, where we had only like, or it was maybe like last year, where we only had sci-fi horror games with
and they all looked identical.
Protocol.
They all looked the same. It's like another trailer for this game, and then it was a different one. You're like, oh.
Yeah. So yeah, somehow Fort Solace is still not out, but Troy Baker and Roger Clark are actually in there, so that's kind of cool. And yeah, like Xbox gonna have a big show. Stalker 2 will be playable for the first time. They have the Cyberpunk DLC playable. Like that's of course coming out end of September. We'll probably hear something about that. Sony last year surprised people with the DualSense Edge, the Pro controller that we both have like a kind of love-hate relationship with. Like I can't go back to the DualSense, but I also would not recommend that you pick it up for $200.
Yeah.
That's kind of I think the gist of it. So they might surprise us with like the PS5 Slim, which leaked, because that's seemingly happening in September. The Q Lite, like sort of handheld they got going, should still come out. Helldivers 2 is like still coming this year, I guess, or maybe they will just have a Spidey update. So I think overall there's gonna be like some fun things. Crimson Desert, I'm not sure if you heard about that game. It's like the new game from the Black Desert people, Pearl Abyss.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot. Also, Jeff Keighley, as you see on the title of the article, Jeff Keighley's stressing it's more about updates to projects that are coming in the next year. It's less about big bombastic new announcements, which I'm glad he is taking the steps to try and like calm people down a little, because every single time there's any gaming event ever, everybody immediately jumps to, oh, so we're going to get Bloodborne 2, and then we're also going to get Despacito 3. Like people just jump to crazy conclusions, and I appreciate him just coming in and being like, guys, no, we're like, it's going to be an awesome show, but this is what we're doing. So I think that's cool. Yeah, Xbox is going to show up in full force. There's going to be a lot there, and for those who are wondering, like, well, I'm not going to be there. When am I going to find out about this? They have the opening night live presentation, which is where most of these announcements are made. But as for like the gameplay stuff that Jor is going to see at the event, like that playable section of the Cyberpunk DLC, all of that stuff, usually in the weeks following Gamescom, they just end up releasing this stuff as videos and teasers and
probably
stuff. So you're probably still going to see all of this just a week or two after it's described by our one and only Joe Raptor. So don't.
Yeah, we'll be next week Friday on the show here. Then I do. Yeah, we have to like. We have to. I think I'm able to. Yeah. No, we're gonna do that. So next week Friday I'll be back. Gamescom.
Yeah, baby.
Played Jade. Played Prince of Persia.
Yeah.
Lost Crown.
I'm interested in that one.
Yeah, same. So yeah, that's kind of Gamescom. I think it's let's not like hype it up too much, but I do think like last year we had some cool games. Do you remember Where Winds Meet, which is like kind of like a Chinese looking Ghost of Tsushima game?
Maybe, yeah.
It looked pretty cool. Like we had some like cool surprises, and Doke-V. Remember that, like the Pokemon style?
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah, that was other Gamescom.
Oh,
so yeah, we might
those.
see some.
I mean,
we might see some.
Here's a question. We have Proto asking, do you think the Elden Ring DLC is going to be there?
I don't think so, because it's the launch week of Armored Core. I think they're gonna just focus on that.
I think that's fair. I think they probably announce Elden Ring DLC or like show it in a trailer, probably at the Game Awards. It only makes sense. Can you imagine it? Like, and to present our next trailer is the winner of last year's Game of the Year award. And then that guy comes out talking about Bill Clinton, and then Hidetaka comes out. I think if they do that, that's just a layup. But I mean, speaking of other potential announcements, you saw that alleged leak, right, of the alleged PS5 Slim.
I believe it.
You think it's real? This is it, ladies and gentlemen.
Otherwise, someone went into like a lot of trouble, like making this.
If this is a fake, it's probably the best one I've seen for hardware leaks. It's not easy to create fake molds of plastic and like this many that are very precise. It's not that easy. To be clear, everybody, this is the shell. So this is just the plastic housing that the console goes into. I don't think they're saying that the console is actually assembled inside of this, but this is allegedly what it looks like. Yeah.
If you're listening, go to an hour and 15 minutes and you can see it.
Yeah.
An hour and
just to describe it, It looks like a PS5 with two black lines about halfway up that are slightly slanted up as they reach from the back to the front. And these separate portions on the right side. If you're looking at the PS5 front on, it looks as though you can remove the bottom panel of white and then replace it with the disk drive that will basically click on somehow, maybe by sliding or with a screw or something. So it has a detachable disk drive, but it's not just like a plug into the USB-C port. It's an actual attachment to the console itself, which I wasn't expecting. I was expecting them to be a little less graceful with this, but I think this is a nice way of doing it.
But how will it look without it? So that's kind of my question, because obviously the whole thing with the leaks for this was that you would just buy it probably for $399 or $400, and then you got like the digital PS5. But then if you wanted the disc drive, you, instead of having to buy a completely new PS5, you just attach this sort of disc drive to the PlayStation 5. But it seems like you can like kind of get it off or something, and then without it, it will just be like the flat sort of.
That's what I would expect. It looks a little, but like maybe not even. It looks barely smaller than a regular PS5. It might not even actually be smaller.
No,
it's so everybody assuming that this was a slim. It's really not. It looks just as thick, if not exactly as thick as the current PS5. It seems as though this entire thing is being created just to create a new SKU number for the console and to simplify manufacturing. So instead of manufacturing two different models that are completely separate, they only have to manufacture one. And then if you want the disc drive, that's an add-on that you just pop off and pop on. Honestly, they probably should have just done this from the start, but I think they didn't anticipate how frustrating it would be to develop two identical or two similar SKUs at the same time. So this is not going to be something where you need to sell your current PS5 to get this one. This is just something that's going to replace the current model in stores, really.
And there are two USB-C ports on the front.
Yeah,
which I think is like a huge plus. Because like, why go back to the 3.0?
Yeah, I mean, I think I wouldn't call it like a huge plus. I've never used more than one to just charge a controller. So like for me, it's like, okay.
Yeah, they do have to give you like USB-C though then in the box. Otherwise, it won't work. But like, do you still think that was, of course, I think what we talked about before? They're probably going to send out these PS5s. Like we're calling it slim just to simplify it, but it will probably just be PlayStation 5. This is the new one. Hey, this is the only one that's there. Do you think they're gonna like put out like a lot of them, and then the disc drive is like very hard to find? I still think that's probably gonna happen.
I would agree. I think it's gonna happen, but they are going to. And again, just to be clear for everybody, this is pure speculation. This is just YouTubers talking nonsense. But to me, it makes too much sense. If I'm the executive at Sony and selling more digital copies increases the bottom line, why on earth would I make it easier for you to spend money in a different way that makes me less money? If I just happen to accidentally order too few of the disc drives, it greatly helps my business. I'm going to accidentally do that. Why wouldn't I? And they're going to play dumb. They're going to be like, oh, it's just, we've manufacturing problems and difficulties. We just can't keep them in stock. It's weird. I just don't know what's happening. But I think they're going to help people convert.
I totally think we will have stories where like shops are like, we got like 100 PS5s, like a small shop or whatever, and like 10 extra like detachable disc drives, something like that. It's gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, it's like you're alert. Like if you don't have a PS5 right now, like obviously there can be many reasons for that. But usually when people buy a console later in the generation, they're not like they're real hardcore, right? They're not like, I can't sleep because the PS5 is coming out tomorrow. They're like casual gamers. They play a few games per year, or maybe play on a different platform. Like, I think those people are like, whoa, this console is $400, let's get it. And if they then hear, yeah, you have to spend an extra $100, they're like, oh, I'm fine. Oh, I will just check the digital stuff. I tried it a bit. It was fine. I think like even with COVID, we saw the numbers or the number of people that switched to digital like skyrocket. Like it went way faster than like if COVID did not happen, we probably would not have seen the attachment rate on digital games than what we're seeing now. So it will only like go and it will be pretty sad for like, well, what are you gonna do if you have a local game shop? I know there are not a lot of them, but even if you have like a big one where physical games is still your bread and butter, and you're selling this PS5, you're basically saying, hey, I will see you never again. Bye-bye. It's like such a weird thing, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. It's clearly where the industry is going. And to address Stefan's point in chat, that it looks fake because it looks like just a regular PS5, just as thick with just a cut in the plates. To be clear, the only people, like, Sony has not said anything about making a PS5 Slim. What Xbox said in the Activision case was that they expect like a mid-gen refresh model and an updated SKU from them, which is what this is. I think they referred to it colloquially as a Slim, but that's just because last generation it happened to be slimmer. Usually these updates are done to like basically simplify manufacturing, and all that this seems to be doing is exactly that. This just seems to be a SKU that they can sell one model of PS5, and then if you want a disc drive, it's an accessory basically, instead of having to sell and stock two totally separate versions of the same console. So to me, there's nothing about this that is that far out of line, and the people that have reported it, like I think Tom Henderson from Insider Gaming, he was even saying that this is in line with what's been reported from them and what they've gotten from their sources. So if people are expecting like a much slimmer or much different looking PlayStation 5, I think we only have ourselves to blame because Sony hasn't said anything yet. It's all just been speculation, but it's not as exciting as I think people were hoping. It's just a PS5 that you can swap the drive on.
On the other hand, are people really that already have a PS5 are gonna get a smaller one if it have like?
I think you'd be surprised. I've said before, PlayStation is the Apple of the gaming industry. People like to flex. I mean, just look at when the PlayStation 5 launched. It was like a social status thing to have a PS5. It was like the thing. Even people, I was working in real estate at the time, people that were not gamers were asking me if I had gotten a PS5 yet. And they're like, yeah, I'm looking for one too. And I'm like, dude, you're like 65 years old. There's no way you're going to use it. But they just wanted the social status of having it.
Yeah.
It's weird. It doesn't make sense. But just like everybody wants the newest Apple Watch or the newest iPhone for the social status of it, it also applies to PlayStation stuff for whatever reason. It's really
but that's
freaking
like
weird.
Different because it's like a new screen, a new camera, and with the Switch you get like the OLED. But here it's like a smaller box that does the same thing.
I think
maybe you're
I think people would like also if you're I think that there, again, I don't have like precise numbers to back this up. This is just blind assertions that nobody should take seriously. But I've seen a good number of people that if they can flex that they got the latest PlayStation gadget or accessory, and it's not just PlayStation, it's also Xbox people do this too, but if they get the ability to flex that they got the newest gadget, they will. And especially if it's a noticeable thing that they can put in their little like studio setup, they'll just happen to set it right here, right where you can see it, just in frame, and everybody will look at it and be like, "Wow,
are you talking about yourself, or are you
for sure,
like...
no, like
okay.
I would not buy the PS5 Slim just because, frankly, the current PS5 works fine. The PlayStation 5 Pro or whatever they end up calling it,
100%,
jumping on that day one. But I think people were just tracing. Yeah, baby. I just think like people were starting to expect that this would be a bigger and more exciting kind of mid-gen refresh announcement. It would look a little different. And so when they announce this, there's probably going to be people that are like, what the heck? This is so boring. But it's like, yeah, it wasn't meant to excite people. It was meant to simplify manufacturing. And I know that's not as exciting, but it just is the case. Like, this was never meant to be that thrilling.
Yeah, and the two USB on the front, like, or C on the front, like, makes me also think that this is kind of more like a real thing, because like that's a pretty significant change.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I think all the topics, right? That we were gonna
I think
discuss.
so. I think so. And yeah, pretty
Nice.
that's exactly what I was referring to with DSP with a big PlayStation 5 box. There's that same streamer I referenced earlier. He put he got his PS5 and then he put the box and all of the accessory boxes behind him very clearly and transparently because he couldn't see the console. So he wanted everybody to know that he had gotten it. It's funny. Lolcows are funny. Anyway, any final moments or final questions from chat and things? Oh yes, Proto has very patiently been asking the whole stream about this. And I just want to ask your opinion of it as well, Jor. Nintendo has started trying to file patents. I think they succeeded actually for multiple gameplay systems that are present in Tears of the Kingdom. What are your thoughts on that? Or
yeah,
if you
so some of the like unique
some unique
like
mechanics
tools
and yeah.
I remember that I think Warner also did the same for the Nemesis system.
Yep.
For like I'm like of two minds about it. On one hand, I get it because why can people do it with tech? Like obviously, like when Sony figures something cool out with the PlayStation, they patent it as well, or like every other company does it. But why can like a unique gaming system cannot do it? So that's kind of where I'm from. Like if you have this very unique idea, yeah, I hope in a perfect world that everyone is like sharing and that the developers or that Nintendo is like, sure, go use it, and then hopefully that can create another cool game that we can then all play that have the same element, and maybe then Nintendo is like, whoa, we did not think of that. Let's implement it in whatever the next Zelda is or whatever. I think that's same with the Nemesis system. That's such a cool system, and now especially with Monolith Productions being kind of dormant since Shadow of War in 2017, like we had Origins around the same time, and that team already released Valhalla 3 years later, and are now already on their way on working on another big Assassin's Creed game. And Monolith Productions is still like doing Wonder Woman, which like the first game after Shadow of War. So it's kind of sad that they got sort of the rights and the knowledge to do this Nemesis system, but because they're figuring stuff out, of course, all the Warner Brothers studios like Rocksteady are having trouble as well. That we don't see something cool like that. So of course, in a perfect world, I think this is a bad thing. But on the other hand, I get it. Like we see that for all things tech, that people are like, hey, this is my idea. I want to be the only user of this, and I one end it's kind of fair, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my take on it. But it's sad to see, especially like Nintendo doesn't need it. Like I don't think that if someone else makes a Zelda game or like a game like that with similar systems, that the next Zelda will sell less. No.
Yeah.
I think maybe it will sell even more because people are like, oh, whoa, this system is interesting. Where did they got it from? Oh, let's try Tears of the Kingdom because somehow I didn't know about it or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
No, I agree. I think it's a nuanced issue. It's not as simple as just, this is terrible, riot, everybody cancel Nintendo. Because fundamentally it's meant to protect the intellectual property of the creators. And if it was like a small indie studio, like, I don't know, maybe you look at a game like Dave the Diver or like Stardew Valley. I almost said Starfield Valley. Jesus. Stardew Valley, like something like that. If it's a small company and they protect features or systems that are pretty novel and groundbreaking in their games, I think we'd all be applauding them. Like, yeah, big companies, corporations can't steal their stuff. But when a bigger company does it for something they made, we don't like it. And so, but the only way to have the rule and allow those protections to exist is if it applies to everybody and if everybody can use it. So legally it's frustrating, but it protects the little guys as well as the big guys. It just depends on who's doing it in that given instance. But I think you raise a really good point. There's going to be like pretty much no harm to Nintendo. Like even if we saw with Breath of the Wild with Immortals Phoenix Rising, when a game comes along and like tries to do their own spin on it, but it's very, very clear where the inspiration came from. It's not as simple as like, oh, well, now we sold just as much as Breath of the Wild did. Like, no, it's much more difficult than that. And a lot of the time it can even be a net negative to be seen as just copying what another studio did with their game. It's not as simple as just copy and paste. And the Shadow of War example with the Nemesis system is commonly brought up, but even that patent was filed, and other companies have still done systems that are very similar, like with Assassin's Creed and the mercenaries that come and chase you down. It's a much lighter weight version of the Nemesis system, but it's clear what they were trying to do and where they got the inspiration for it. So, you know, kind of like Joe Raptor said, in a perfect world, all of these studios would work collaboratively with each other, sharing ideas. You know, Fallout 4's VAT system and Fallout 3's VAT system came from, was it System Shock, and systems they had in there. So a lot of times ideas are passed between games, and I like that free flow of information, but I also understand why protections like this are probably a good thing in the long run for big and small companies alike. So it's just nuanced. It's nuanced.
Yeah, for sure. There are probably many reasons that we're not even thinking of why Nintendo did it. And to be fair, like, it's not uncommon that you do see clones from a lot of different companies. They think, okay, Zelda is only on Nintendo. We're gonna make Zelda on PlayStation, and we're gonna do all the same things, and we're gonna look at how they did it. No, now Nintendo's like kind of protecting that, which might also be a part of it. But I mean, you're seeing a lot of card games, but I like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe still sold 55 million. So it doesn't matter. In I still think, even if other people were like trying to implement these features, and I also think I don't think anyone would try it because they don't have the budget, the sort of like time that Nintendo would give a team like this. Like, that's Tears of the Kingdom released. I think there was like even news that the game was like finished a year before it came out, and they were just like bug testing and like fixing things for a full year, because so much things can break, and you of course still want that Nintendo quality that only Pokemon somehow doesn't get.
Like, not by a little, by a lot.
By a lot. Yeah.
Well, and that's interesting. Pepperoni Ronin, I wasn't familiar with that. EA apparently patented the Apex Legends ping system, but made it free to use. They did this so no one else can patent it, to make it so no one can use such a system. Well, and if like in cases like that, of course, I think we'd all be like, good on ya, EA, that's awesome. Like, you bought it, you patented it, and then you protect it so everybody can use it. That's cool. The problem is, like, there's just no clear way of saying that, and like, I don't think anybody's expecting Nintendo to be magnanimous or collaborative. They don't tend to be that way. So FSR 3.0 Starfield, I'm not sure what that's referring to, Hanover. I know that there were already rumors and statements made that apparently they were not going to include DLSS at all with Starfield, but rather just FSR 2.0. So if you're saying that they will now support 3.0, let's just pray to God it's better than 2.0, because FSR 2.0 sucks absolute ass. So
I want to also shout out Tess with a super chat that we missed because we were deep in the conversation. Your is more on Luke's channel than his own, but still love you guys. Keep up the feeds.
Yeah, Joe.
Luke got the patent on me, so I can only appear on his channel. Yep. It's kind of how it went, and nothing I can do about it.
That's
now tremendous. I've been like really on like a lot of like breaks, and it's quiet time. One more sort of for me, get out, and then next week it's getting pretty crazy. I think like end of August, September, October, it's gonna be a wild but fun ride. So I'll be more talking to you on my channel as well.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot to talk about, and we're gonna have to pick Joel Raptor's brain about all the stuff he's gonna see at Gamescom that I totally will not be jealous about seeing. So yeah,
I actually got a cool schedule. I was like, a few weeks ago, I was like, I don't have any appointments, and then out of nowhere, everything came through. So that's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
I feel bad. I've gotten a flood of emails from companies that are like, yeah, so sign up for a slot here at Gamescom. And I'm like, I won't be there.
Oh.
Next year I'll see you guys.
I can like
probably.
pretend to be you.
Yeah.
Do you have like anything cool exclusive?
You could
that
just
I'm
like
not allowed to see?
FaceTime, yeah, or like
Yeah,
FaceTime me, just
Your
carry me
face
along.
in front of me, like a photo. It's Luke. It's
Yeah,
Luke.
it's totally Luke. Pretty
I
alright,
like
thank you.
Warhammer and
Yeah, Warhammer nerd, yeah, blah blah blah. Jor, glad to have you back. Hope everything's settled in for you. Says pretty alright. Very generous.
pretty aight. Appreciate it.
Alright. Hopefully everything is.
Yeah, things
pretty
have
aight.
settled. Yeah, it's the in between moment. I've been like I came back Sunday from the holiday, worked for 3 days, and tomorrow I'm like leaving for the whole weekend, and then Monday relax for Tuesday Gamescom.
Yeah,
It's gonna. So yeah, thanks for the podcast. Thanks everyone for watching. I'm gonna do some final preps here, and then speak to you on Friday for the Gamescom post.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be good. Everybody, thanks for chilling. Thanks for hanging out with us. Again, everybody, this will be on every podcast platform you can imagine. So go check us out there, and please, if you would review it. Nice, Joe Raptor. That's hot. And let us know what you think of the podcast with a review. That would be greatly, greatly appreciated. But with all that, thank you for watching or listening. Appreciate every single one of you. You all are wonderful, stunning, brave, and beautiful. We will see you in the next one. Hugs and kisses.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.